Here's 10 hobbies you can start in 2023. Hi everyone! So if you wanted to start a hobby this year but you weren't really sure what hobby to do or where to start, I wanted to give you some different ideas. Coming from the queen of hobbies herself, who has way too many hobbies, I really want to show you that they can start really inexpensive, so you don't need to go all out and spend all your money. You can start on a really budget level, and if you love it like I do with most of my hobbies, keep increasing that budget. So let's get started on our hobbies. Before we begin, let me know what hobbies you're currently working on, or if there's any hobbies you wanted to try out but weren't really sure where to start. And also remember to subscribe, as I'd really appreciate it. So number one is Cricut crafts. So I have a lot of videos on this topic, so if you want to explore further, feel free to check those out. But I thought we'd make a project today using cardstock, and I'm going to show you how to do that whole setup. So the Cricut machine itself can be quite expensive. I think mine was about $400 at the time. I have the Cricut Explore Air 2, then now I've got the Cricut Explore Air 3 and the makers and everything else. So they can get quite expensive, but once you've got the machine, it has endless possibility. Let's get started on a cardstock project. I'll show you which project we're going to do and show you how easy it can be.
So I'm going to jump on the Cricut website, and I'm thinking a Valentine's Day theme considering that is coming up. I'm really liking the look of this hearts card, so I think we're going to make this one. So I'm going to load everything onto the mat, and I'm thinking some pink colours to go with the Valentine's theme. So I'm loading it into the Cricut machine now and making sure it's set on the cardstock setting. I always like to rub it down extra to make sure it doesn't pull off. And now I'm peeling it off the mat, and this is what we've got so far. So we're going to fold it into a card, and then I'm going to cut it into shape because it's obviously not the right size for a card. And then I'm going to cut the inside layer and glue it all together just so it looks really nice and neat. And then once they're together, this is what it's going to look like.
This is what it looks like. A little bit imperfect, but we don't mind. So these are on Cricut Access, so you do have to pay $10 a month for these, but you can easily create your own on Cricut, or like I do, design everything on Procreate and then import it in, which is free. And you can also use the confetti that gets cut from the hearts to use in your envelope if you wanted to. I've just made the biggest mess in my room. That was so dumb. Also, if you don't have time to invest in the Cricut and you don't have time to make cards, I am selling some on Etsy, so if you want to check those out. So the next one is journaling, and this is probably going to be the cheapest of the hobbies in this video. I did go into journaling in my last video, but I'd like to go into it a little bit further. So basically, I have my two journals, my one line a day book and my regular journal. I journal at night time, so whatever works for your schedule, but basically before I start reading my book in bed, I will write in my journal, and that seems to work for me. With my to-do list, I do write that on my phone every morning, so I guess that counts as journaling, but I prefer when I can write in a book. I just feel so much better. So I'm going to show you some ideas on what you can write in your journal, but it is very personal and whatever works for you.
So first I'm going to do 3 things I'm grateful for. So you might want to do this in the morning when you wake up and just before bed as a reminder of 3 things that really made your day or make you who you are. I'm also going to do 2023 habits, or the habits that I want to achieve in 2023. So different ideas that I want to set for myself for the year.
So what I love about journaling is that you can completely make it your own. If you like to use your phone, you can do that. I'm trying to limit my phone access, so I do prefer writing in a book. And you can get these really cheap at different stores. So Kmart, Big W, Officeworks. Some of them sell for as little as $5, which is perfect. So it doesn't have to be an expensive hobby, and it can be really therapeutic and really relaxing. So the next one is a new hobby I'm going to try and start, because I clearly don't have enough hobbies, is scrapbooking or collaging. So I've done a bit of collaging on my iPad, but I'd really like to have a go at scrapbooking in paper, cutting out different objects and putting them together. I saw this really cool TikTok account where a woman during lockdown was buying the New York Times and collaging it every day with different segments from the newspaper, and it looked awesome. So I wanted to see if I could attempt this with the Age and Herald Sun. I don't know if it'll be as cool, but we're gonna have a go. So we're gonna head to the shops for this one, so let's go.
So the scrapbook only ended up costing me $3.50. I thought it was going to be $7, but we saved a bit of money. And I'm going to start by reading the newspaper first to get some ideas. So I'm just going to go around and cut different images, different quotes, different things that are important for the day and the year, and then just start putting them all together. So once I've cut everything out, I'm going to open up my scrapbook and then lay everything out in the format that I wanted. So I actually thought I didn't cut enough images and words, but I think I actually cut too much. So I'm just trying to find enough space for everything. And once I'm happy with the layout, I'm going to start gluing everything down. And it actually made a massive mess on my hand, so just be careful with that. And then we are done.
Next one on my list is sewing, and I know you're gonna say, but the machines are expensive, this is not a cheap hobby. Well, they don't have to be. So, I got mine for $500. Now you may think that's really expensive, but this is gonna last me for a really long time, and I've used it for so many different projects that I think it's worth it. But you can find secondhand ones for really cheap that work really well. You can also ask your mum, your dad, grandma. Usually they have a spare one lying around the house. After I bought this one, my boyfriend's mum had 2 other sewing machines that I have now taken as my own. You never know. So ask around, someone might have one lying around that they never use, and that can be a cheap way to get a sewing machine. So I'm going to show you some different projects I've made, and we're also going to make a scrunchie today together. I'm not going to go into a full tutorial, but if you'd like one, let me know and I can make a video on that.
So these are some recent sewing projects I've done. So we're going to start with our scrunchie. You're going to fold it right sides together and sew the edge. Then you're going to bring the edge into the middle, fold it in on itself, and then you're going to sew the edges all the way down. You have to do this about 3 to 4 times. And once you're done, you're going to pull it out, and then we're going to flip it back inside out so you've got the right side facing outward.
And now you've got a scrunchie. So I buy a lot of my material from Spotlight, but you can also just use old clothes. So if you are throwing a lot of clothes out, you can use old fabrics. I've made so many different bags and scrunchies this way, so it's a really great way to do that. But yeah, I think sewing is such a great hobby. I always get lost and you've spent hours sewing, and it's just really fun, rewarding way. And then you can wear your own clothes and accessories. The next one is painting. So this again can be as expensive or inexpensive as you like. You can buy cheap paintbrushes from Spotlight, Officeworks, Bunnings, anywhere you want, and they don't really need to be expensive if you're just starting out. If you really want to invest in your painting, you might need to get some more expensive paints and more expensive brushes, but if you're just starting out, I definitely recommend some cheap brushes just to try out the hobby. If you want to buy a cheap scrapbook, you can buy specific scrapbooks that are designed to handle paint. So this is a multimedia pad designed for painting. So sometimes with just normal paper, it can be a bit too thick and the paper will crinkle or make an absolute mess. So you might need to buy a more specific one for painting. But again, if you're just starting out, just grab some paper, have some fun and see what you can do. So this was about $18 from Spotlight, but you can buy a cheap scrapbook just to start with, just to see if you like the hobby. So we're gonna go have a quick paint. I'm not very good, but I do have some fun with it. So let's go enjoy. So the materials I've got are just a cup of water to clean your brushes. Do not drink that. I've got some paints that are very well loved. I've got some brushes, all in different sizes, and this was quite cheap from Spotlight as well. I've got my multimedia pad and some paper towel just to dry as well. So we're just gonna paint and see whatever comes to us. I do like those random pattern designs, so I think we're just gonna do something like that, but let's have a go. So painting doesn't have to be for other people, it can just be for you, and it's a great way to relax. As I said, not very good, but it is a lot of fun. You can buy some cheap paints and brushes and just get started, and if you like it, invest in more. Alright, the next one on our list is photography. So again, you can buy all the equipment like I have, but you don't have to. You can just start with your phone and see how you go. So I'm going to show you behind the scenes of me setting up a product photo, but you can just use natural light.
So this is my camera setup for an earring shoot. I literally have my ring light with my sewing machine cover on top. It's a very basic setup. So I'm going to grab some fabric and then place the earrings around and just have a quick play. And here are the final shots. And this is my camera bag setup. I do have quite a few lenses that I use, and I do have some film cameras as well.
So that's a look at my photography setup and what equipment I use, but as I said, it doesn't have to be expensive, and you can start with natural light, you can use a piece of paper as a backdrop, you can get really creative, and I've taken some really great shots with just my phone, so don't feel like that's a reason you can't start. So next on my list is book reading, and this is one of my plans for 2023 to read more books. And so far I've read 1.5. Yay! This is progress for me because usually it will take me a few months just to read one. So I just finished reading Stories of Hope by Heather Morris, which was a great book and really inspiring. And I've also just started reading Atomic Habits. Amazing book. I'm already halfway and it's only been about 2 days, but it is a really inspiring book and definitely recommend. I'm going to do a bit of a recap on what I've learned once I finish, but so far, amazing book. But with reading, I love to read before bed. I just feel like it's a great way to get off my phone, get off technology, and just really enjoy a good book. So that is when I do reading, but you can just find a really nice cozy spot in your house and just really get into a good book, and you'll be surprised how many hours go by and also how much you don't use your phone, which is another bonus. Now, book reading does need to be an expensive hobby. You can buy secondhand books from op shops and you can borrow from family and friends, as I'm sure they will happily loan you a really good book. So don't be afraid to ask, and that can be a really good way of having a cheap hobby that you really love. So the next on my list is brain teasers and puzzles. Now, if you're like me and love doing the daily quiz, you can find this online. The Sydney Morning Herald is one that posts their quizzes free every day. So it's a great way to jump on and do their quizzes. But if you wanted to pay for the newspaper every day, you can just do those quizzes, or you can buy some really great books. These are all $3 from the news agency, and they're so much fun. So let's go and have a play at a puzzle and see what we can do.
So we're just going to do a very basic word search today. It's just a little fun challenge that's pretty quick to do.
So they don't need to be super complicated. They can just be little brain teasers just to get your brain going and active and have a little bit of fun. Next hobby on my list is working with clay. So I use the original Sculpey oven bake clay, but you can also use some air dry clays. I just find that you don't need to rush as much with this, as this will stay soft until you're ready to bake it. So we're gonna have a quick play with the clay, rhymed, and see what we can come up with. So this doesn't have to be expensive. I usually just put the clay in the oven and then paint with my Posca pens. Alternatively, you can use the acrylic paints we used before, but it's totally up to you. All right, let's go clay.
So you need to use a clean surface, so I'm just using the back of a cricket mat for this. I'm going to pull off a bit of clay and roll it into a ball, and then have a play around and see what I can come up with. I've decided to roll it into a spiral, and the first thing that came to mind was snail. So that is what we're going with. So I'm just going to pat it down and make sure there's no rough edges, and now we have our snail. And here's some previous projects I've done.
So we're not going to be baking our clay today because we're going to start our next hobby, which is baking, and I want to use the oven. So we are going to be baking some gingerbread cookies that were a limited edition Christmas special. But again, baking is one of those things that can be really cheap or really expensive depending how you want to go with it. We're just going to use a packet mix today and make it real simple. All right, let's go bake.
So here is our packet mix. So we're going to pour all the contents together into a bowl. So I've got my egg as well and my butter. And I think I made it extra soft. But we're going to mix everything around and then we're going to knead it all together. And then once it's done, we're going to start rolling it out and then putting it into the shape of the gingerbread. And they just look so cute. So I'm going to cut all of the gingerbread out and then pop them in the oven for baking for about 12 to 15 minutes. And here's what they look like so far. And now we have to do the icing, which I absolutely failed at, so they look horrendous, but they taste really nice.
I hope this video gave you some inspiration for what your next hobby could be this year. If you've got any questions on any of the hobbies I showed you, please let me know. If you'd like further videos on those, I can absolutely do them. If you'd like a part 2 on this, I have so many more hobbies that I can show you, so definitely can do that. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye!